Welcome viewers to American Politics, the hub of latest updates happening around you. That Warsaw speech was pretty good until Joe Biden, closer to the beatific vision than many of us, cried out, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power." The White House issued an instant correction. He meant Putin shouldn't have power over his neighbors, not Moscow, but the Kremlin translated it as a call for regime change. Please subscribe to our channel for more authentic updates. The gaffe raises the question of what the West really wants. If you believe, as our leaders have suggested, that Putin has declared war on democracy itself, that Ukraine is only the beginning, and someday Vlad will direct his orc armies towards us, it is logical to conclude that peace is only a long-term prospect with Putin gone. Hence Biden accidentally articulated where much of the West's imagination is already headed, from defense to offense. Yet the very same day Biden said this, Liz Truss told this newspaper that Britain was willing to lift sanctions on Russia if Moscow agrees to a full ceasefire and withdrawal. This implies a future with Putin, not just in power, but back in business. Antony Blinken has also said US sanctions are not designed to be permanent. This is a very different approach, much closer to what's actually happening behind closed doors. Ukraine and Russia are talking. A key demand has already been conceded: Ukraine will not be joining NATO. Far harder to swallow will be secession of Donbas or a land corridor to Crimea, but Western diplomats know that, so long as their nations won't intervene directly, Russia is happy to go on shelling, and this bloodshed will only be resolved with a political compromise. It's always best to limit the terms of a conflict, in this case to reduce the risk of a nuclear exchange, but also on the universal basis that the narrower the terms of a negotiation, the easier it is to strike a peace deal. The modern tendency to demand the dictators go to jail is unhelpful. It hands them a propaganda coup, see, NATO is the aggressor, and it makes it less likely the bad guy will back down. If Putin believes that even a perception of defeat might topple him, perhaps put him in court, he's more likely to throw the kitchen sink at victory. Any talk of regime change makes it that much harder to reach an agreement in the short term, and a ceasefire would grant NATO breathing space to redefine its red lines and beef up its borders. So, let's be honest, the Kremlin's insistence that Putin's future will be a choice of the people of the Russian Federation is sort of right. He might claim a win eventually, but the loss of life and treasure might also turn out to be so great that he is quietly invited to retire or fall out of a window. The matter is probably out of our hands. Last week I attended the National Conservative Conference in Brussels. I have never seen so many men under 30 with mustaches. Ukraine was the only talking point. Among delegations, there was unanimity that Putin is wicked, but disagreement over what to do. The Poles are ready for World War III. Their PM blamed the crisis on liberalism. The Hungarians, who seem to curse every other word, are more cautious because their economy is integrated with Russia's. The Romanians fear it'll be their country on the front line, and the Americans, who worry they'll be doing all the fighting, were irritated at the lack of debate. The Israelis are reluctant to poke the Russian bear in case it responds in kind with the Arabs. I met a boy who was a jet pilot in the Israeli Air Force. No doubt he could kill me 12 different ways with a dessert spoon. War remains an abstraction for most of us in the West, a fantasy, though I have agreed to do my bit and registered my interest in hosting a refugee. I give it a week before he requests asylum from my cooking. I felt very English. My conservatism is like that of a mole in his hole, and the passion of the continent leaves me nonplussed. In the last session, a Greek MP declared that Europe ruled much of the world for several centuries and he didn't understand why we were ashamed of it. The answer might lie in the massive portrait above his head of Leopold II, apparently unnoticed by anyone else at the conference, under whose rule Belgium slaughtered millions of Congolese. I ducked out to explore Brussels and spent a day at the wonderful royal collections, which span Bruegel to Magritte. Rubens, it seems, is being decolonized. In 1614, he painted 4 studies of a head of a Moor. The contemporary objection isn't to the painting, which is flattering, but the word Moor. The gallery, which first acquired the work during the reign of Leopold, has dedicated half a room to reassessing the title, again, not the picture itself, and to contribute to a scientifically substantiated debate. There is some mention of LGBT in Me Too and a handy booklet which promises to seek a collective and inclusive something better. This is a divided society. Flemish and French Belgians apparently can't stand each other, and to paper over the cracks, everything is signposted in French and Dutch, sometimes a third time in English. This extends to the signs on artworks, with no exceptions. Under a picture of Magritte's wife was printed, Georgette Magritte. Georgette Magritte. And, once again for the English tourists, Georgette Magritte. Thanks for watching.